Description: in the 2050s, humanity achieved what once seemed impossible, constructing self-sustaining space stations as a second home for Earth's burgeoning population. But as life in orbit flourishes, the challenges of survival and governance emerge. Follow the journey of a young engineer who finds herself entangled in a mystery that could determine the fate of humanity's ambitious endeavor. Chapter 1: The Floating Cities. The year was 2065. High above Earth, the self-sustaining space station Haven, one shimmered like a jewel among the stars. A marvel of human ingenuity, it orbited 36,000 kilometers above the equator, housing 30,000 residents who called it home. Equipped with artificial gravity, hydroponic farms, fusion reactors, and a closed-loop water recycling system, Haven, one was more than a station. It was a city, a sanctuary, and humanity's bold step toward interstellar independence. For Kaia Moreno, a 28-year-old systems engineer, it was also her workplace. Born on Earth but raised in orbit, Kaia embodied the next generation of humans who viewed space not as a frontier, but as a fact of life. She strolled through the agrarium, where rows of genetically modified wheat waved under artificial sunlight. Nearby, automated drones buzzed, tending to the crops. The hum of life support systems played in the background, a sound that Kaia found both comforting and relentless. Her routine check-in with the Environmental Integrity Unit took a sudden turn when her wrist communicator buzzed. The voice of her supervisor, Chief Engineer Rahul Banerjee, crackled through. "Kaia, we've got an anomaly in Reactor Module B. The output readings are fluctuating." Kaia frowned. Reactor Module B powered a significant portion of Haven 1. Any instability in the system could spell disaster. "On my way, Chief," she replied, already heading for the reactor chamber. As she descended through the station's interconnected hubs, Kaia couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. These reactors were designed to be foolproof. For a fluctuation to occur meant either a system failure or sabotage. Chapter 2: Tensions in the Stars. Kaia arrived at Reactor Module B to find Rahul and his team clustered around the console. The screen displayed erratic energy output graphs. "I've never seen anything like this," muttered Rahul, his usually calm demeanor replaced by a furrowed brow. Kaia leaned over the console, her fingers dancing across the controls as she accessed the diagnostic logs. The data revealed intermittent spikes in energy consumption, almost as if something or someone was drawing more power than the system could handle. "These spikes aren't random," Kaia said, her voice steady. "They're deliberate." Rahul turned to her, startled. "Deliberate? Are you saying this could be sabotage?" Before Kaia could respond, the station-wide announcement system crackled to life. A calm, synthetic voice filled the air. "Attention all residents. An unscheduled system maintenance will commence in 10 minutes. Please prepare for temporary power fluctuations." Kaia and Rahul exchanged uneasy glances. They hadn't authorized any maintenance. "This is too coordinated to be a coincidence," Kaia said, urgency creeping into her tone. "If someone's trying to mess with the reactor, they could jeopardize the entire station." Rahul nodded. "Let's isolate Reactor Module B from the main grid. We'll secure it while we figure out what's going on." As Kaia worked with the team to reroute the power supply, her mind raced. Sabotage on a station like Haven, one wasn't just a technical issue, it was a political one. With representatives from Earth's nations constantly vying for influence over the station, tensions often ran high. But who would take such a risk? And why? The reactor's hum grew louder as Kaia input the final command to isolate the module. Just as she did, the lights flickered, and for a brief moment, the artificial gravity wavered. Kaia grabbed onto a nearby handrail as her feet lifted off the ground. "That's not supposed to happen," one of the technicians shouted. Kaia's communicator buzzed again. This time, it was her friend and confidant, Mateo, calling from the station's command center. His voice was tinged with panic. "Kaia, you need to see this." Security cameras just caught someone tampering with the station's core systems. You're not going to believe who it is. Kaia's heart sank. Whatever was happening, it was about to upend life on Haven 1 and potentially humanity's future in the stars. Chapter 3. The Phantom Saboteur. Kaia rushed to the command center, her thoughts racing. Who could possibly have infiltrated the core systems of Haven 1? It was nearly impossible for unauthorized individuals to access restricted areas, let alone tamper with vital infrastructure. As she entered the command center, Mateo spun his chair around, gesturing to a holographic display in the center of the room. The station's surveillance feed played in the air before them. There, Mateo said, pointing to the screen. The footage showed a figure clad in a maintenance suit slipping into a restricted area near the reactor. Despite the low lighting, the individual's movements were deliberate, almost rehearsed. They bypassed biometric locks and security systems with ease, as if they'd done it 100 times. Kaia leaned in closer. Can you zoom in? Enhance the image? Mateo manipulated the controls, and the figure's face came into view, or at least, what should have been their face. The saboteur was wearing a reflective visor, obscuring their identity. Any chance we can trace their ID tag? Kaia asked. Mateo shook his head. Already tried. They've spoofed their credentials, overriding the station's database. Whoever this is, they're not just some rogue technician. Kaia crossed her arms, her mind racing. They knew exactly what they were doing. This isn't random. Suddenly, the holographic map of the station flickered, and a red alert flashed across the screen. A warning message scrolled across the display, unauthorized access detected in life support systems. Kaia turned to Mateo, her stomach tightening. They're not done. Mateo nodded grimly. We need to stop them before they compromise something critical. Let's go. Chapter 4. Shadows and Life Support. Kaia and Mateo arrived at the life support hub, the lifeblood of Haven 1. It was a sprawling maze of pipes, vents, and control panels where oxygen levels, temperature, and water recycling were meticulously managed. The room was eerily quiet, save for the rhythmic hum of machinery. Kaia scanned the area with her wrist communicator, trying to pick up any unusual energy signatures or heat patterns. Over there, Mateo whispered, pointing toward a shadow moving near a cluster of air filtration units. The two crept closer, careful not to make any noise. Kaia's heart pounded as she reached for the compact stun device clipped to her belt. They needed to apprehend the intruder before more damage was done. The saboteur was crouched near a control panel, their hands moving deftly over the interface. Kaia could see the faint glow of a device they had connected to the system. She recognized it immediately, a hacking tool designed to override and reroute station protocols. Stop right there, Kaia shouted, stepping into the open and aiming her stun device. The saboteur froze for a moment, then sprang into action, disconnecting the hacking tool and bolting toward an emergency exit. Mateo lunged to block their path, but the saboteur was too fast. They twisted past him, sending him sprawling to the floor. Kaia fired the stun device, but the saboteur dodged, disappearing into the labyrinth of pipes. We can't let them get away, Kaia yelled, sprinting after them. The chase led them deeper into the bowels of the station, where the air grew cooler and the lighting dimmer. Kaia's adrenaline surged as she closed the gap, but just as she thought she had the saboteur cornered, they activated a hidden hatch and disappeared into the station's ventilation system. Kaia slammed her fist against the wall in frustration. They're getting away. Mateo caught up, clutching his side. They're too good. No ordinary saboteur has this level of access. Kaia nodded, breathing heavily. We need to figure out who they are and what they're after. If they're targeting life support, they're not just here to cause trouble, they're here to take us down. Mateo's expression darkened. And if we don't stop them, they just might succeed. Chapter 5. A Hidden Agenda. Kaia and Mateo returned to the command center, frustration etched on their faces. The saboteur had slipped through their fingers, but the evidence they left behind might provide answers. Mateo was already decrypting the data from the hacking tool the saboteur had abandoned. Kaia paced behind him, her mind churning. If they sabotaged life support, they could destabilize the entire station. But this doesn't feel random. It's methodical, targeted. There's something bigger going on here. Mateo nodded without looking up. Almost got it. The encryption on this device is military grade. Whoever this is, they've got serious backing. Moments later, the decryption finished. A stream of data filled the screen. Mateo frowned as he scrolled through it. This isn't just sabotage, he said slowly. They were trying to reroute control of life support to an external system. Kaia's eyes widened. External? You mean someone on Earth? Mateo shook his head. No. It's coming from another station. Kaia leaned over his shoulder, staring at the coordinates displayed on the screen. They pointed to Arcadia, a rival station orbiting Earth's Lagrange point 2. While Haven, one was a collaborative effort among Earth's nations, Arcadia was privately owned by Solex Corporation, a conglomerate infamous for its aggressive tactics and questionable ethics. You think Solex is behind this? Kaia asked, her voice low. Mateo shrugged. They've always wanted to undermine Haven. 1. If they control our life support systems, they'd have leverage over us and the ability to cripple the station if we don't comply with their demands. Kaia's jaw tightened. This isn't just an attack on the station. It's an act of war. But before they could delve deeper, the command center's emergency alarms blared. A red warning flashed across the room. Unauthorized drone deployment in Sector 3. Kaia and Mateo exchanged grim looks. They're escalating, Kaia said. Let's move. Chapter 6. The Drone Ambush. Sector 3 housed the station's central storage units, a critical area where supplies were kept for emergencies. Kaia and Mateo raced down the corridors, their footsteps echoing against the steel walls. When they arrived, they found chaos. Automated security drones patrolled the area, their laser scanners sweeping for intruders. But these drones weren't operating under standard protocols. Their targeting systems were active, and one had already fired at a nearby maintenance bot, reducing it to smoking debris. These drones are hacked, Mateo said, ducking behind a cargo crate as a drone scanner passed over them. Kaia nodded, pulling out her wrist communicator to access the drone's control network. Keep them busy while I try to disable them. Mateo grabbed a nearby metal rod and threw it across the room. The clang echoed, drawing the drone's attention away from Kaia. As the machines pivoted toward the noise, their scanners turned red, and they began firing. Kaia worked quickly, bypassing layers of corrupted code to regain control. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she navigated the security system. The drones weren't just hacked, they were running on a foreign operating system, one she hadn't seen before. Kaia, they're coming back this way. Mateo shouted, scrambling to find better cover. Kaia cursed under her breath and pushed harder. Finally, she found a weak point in the code and injected a manual override command. One by one, the drones powered down, their glowing scanners fading to black. Got it, Kaia called out, slumping against the console. Mateo emerged from behind a crate, breathing heavily. That was too close. Kaia stood and inspected the damaged maintenance bot. The wreckage revealed scorch marks from the drone's weapons, marks that matched advanced military-grade lasers. This confirms it, she said. Whoever's behind this isn't just playing games. They've got tech far beyond what most Earth governments allow in space. Mateo frowned. If this is Solex, they've crossed a line. But why risk open conflict? What could they gain from taking down Haven 1? Kaia looked toward the viewport, where Earth loomed large in the distance. Control, she said. If Haven 1 falls, they'll have a monopoly on orbital infrastructure. And if they control space, they control the future. Mateo nodded grimly. Then we need to stop them. Fast. Kaia's communicator buzzed with a priority message from the station's central AI. The calm, synthetic voice filled the air, Unidentified vessel detected approaching Haven. 1. Estimated arrival, 15 minutes. Kaia and Matteo froze. If this was connected to the sabotage, their fight was far from over. Chapter 7. The Uninvited Guest. Kaia and Matteo rushed to the observation deck, where the station's security team was already monitoring the approaching vessel. On the central display, a sleek, black spacecraft loomed closer, its surface devoid of any identifying marks or insignias. "What's its trajectory?" Kaia asked, leaning over the console. The officer in charge, a stern woman named Commander Idris, glanced at the readouts. "Direct approach to Docking Bay 4. They're not responding to hails, and their transponder is inactive. It's a ghost ship." Kaia's stomach churned. Docking Bay 4 was one of Haven 1's main access points, and if this ship carried hostile intent, the station was at serious risk. "What's the security protocol for unauthorized vessels?" Matteo asked. Commander Idris sighed. "We've deployed containment fields around the bay, but if they force an entry, we're looking at a full-scale breach." Kaia studied the ship's design. It was smaller than typical transport vessels, but heavily armored, a tactical craft built for infiltration, not diplomacy. "We can't let them dock," Kaia said firmly. "If they're working with the Saboteur, they'll have reinforcements and probably more advanced tech." Commander Idris nodded. "Agreed. But if we try to disable it from here, we risk collateral damage to the station." Kaia's mind raced. "What about an intercept team? We could board the ship before it reaches the bay and disable it from within." Matteo raised an eyebrow. "You want to board that thing? It's a flying fortress. Do you have a better idea?" Kaia shot back. Commander Idris glanced at the countdown timer, 12 minutes until the vessel docked. "We'll assemble a team. Kaia, you're leading this. Matteo, you're with her." Chapter 8. Boarding the Beast. Within minutes, Kaia and Matteo suited up in reinforced EVA gear and boarded a sleek, fast shuttle designed for emergency intercepts. 2 security officers joined them, armed with stun rifles and EMP grenades. The intercept shuttle launched from Haven 1, its thrusters propelling it toward the intruding ship. As they approached, the stark black hull of the craft loomed larger. Its design was unnervingly smooth, as if it had been engineered to absorb both radar and light. "This thing screams Solex," Matteo muttered. Kaia piloted the shuttle toward the craft's airlock. "Let's find out." She engaged the magnetic clamps, securing their shuttle to the vessel. Once docked, Kaia led the team through the airlock. The transition was seamless, the shuttle's systems syncing automatically with the intruders, another sign of its advanced tech. Inside, the ship was eerily silent. The corridors were narrow, bathed in dim red light, and the air carried a metallic tang. Kaia motioned for the team to spread out, her pulse quickening with each step. "Stay sharp," she whispered. "We don't know what we're walking into." They reached the control room without encountering resistance. Kaia approached the central console, a holographic interface pulsing faintly in the darkness. She connected her wrist communicator, attempting to access the ship's systems. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," she murmured. The data she found made her blood run cold. "This isn't just a transport," Kaia said, her voice low. "It's a staging ground. They've got schematics for Haven 1, every system, every vulnerability. And there's more." Matteo looked over her shoulder. "What more?" Kaia tapped a file labeled Operation Eclipse. The holographic display expanded, revealing a chilling plan, coordinated sabotage of Haven 1's critical systems, followed by an armed takeover. The final phase was a forced evacuation, with residents either assimilated into Solex-controlled facilities or left stranded in orbit. "They want the station for themselves," Kaia said, her voice barely a whisper. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered, and a synthetic voice filled the air. "Intruders detected. Security protocols engaged." Doors slammed shut, trapping the team inside the control room. From the shadows, mechanical whirring grew louder. Kaia spun around to see sleek, humanoid security droids emerging from hidden compartments, their weapons glowing with lethal intent. "Looks like they've rolled out the welcome mat," Mateo muttered, raising his stun rifle. Kaia gritted her teeth. "Hold them off. I'll shut this ship down." As the first droid lunged, the room erupted into chaos. Kaia's fingers flew over the console, searching for a way to disable the ship's defenses. Time was running out, not just for her team, but for Haven. 1. Chapter 9. Fighting the Machines. The control room erupted into chaos as the droids advanced. Their metallic limbs moved with precision, and their targeting systems were unerringly accurate. The first droid fired a plasma bolt, narrowly missing Mateo as he ducked behind a console. Kaia kept her focus on the holographic interface, her fingers flying across the controls. "I'm working on disabling their systems. Just keep them off me." One of the security officers lobbed an EMP grenade toward the nearest droid. The device exploded in a pulse of blue light, sending the machine staggering as its circuits temporarily fried. But 2 more droids emerged from the walls, replacing the downed unit. "We're outnumbered," Mateo yelled, firing his stun rifle. The bolt struck a droid square in the chest, but the machine barely slowed, its armor absorbing most of the impact. Kaia's heart raced as she searched the ship's systems for vulnerabilities. Her wrist communicator displayed layer upon layer of encrypted files, each one more complex than the last. Whoever designed this ship's software was a genius and utterly ruthless. "Found it," Kaia shouted. She had located the override protocol for the droids. It required a sequence of manual inputs, and she had less than 30 seconds to execute it before the system locked her out. The droids closed in, their glowing visors scanning for targets. One of them raised its arm, a plasma weapon charging ominously. Kaia gritted her teeth and concentrated. "Cover her," Mateo yelled, throwing himself in front of Kaia as the plasma weapon fired. The bolt grazed his shoulder, and he cried out in pain but stayed upright. Kaia's hands trembled as she typed the final command. With a sharp beep, the override took effect. One by one, the droids froze in place, their glowing visors dimming. The room fell silent except for the labored breathing of Kaia and her team. Mateo leaned against the console, clutching his injured shoulder. "Please tell me that's the last of them," he groaned. Kaia exhaled in relief. "For now. But we're not done yet. We need to take control of this ship and stop it from docking with Haven. 1. Chapter 10. A Desperate Gamble. With the droids neutralized, Kaia redirected her attention to the ship's navigation system. The vessel was still on autopilot, heading straight for docking bay 4. If it reached the station, the consequences would be catastrophic. "I can disable the engines," Kaia said, her voice steady despite the tension. "But it'll trigger a failsafe. The ship will self-destruct." Mateo's eyes widened. "Self-destruct? As in, kaboom? With us on board?" Kaia nodded grimly. "It's designed to prevent capture. But if we don't stop it, Haven 1 is done for." Commander Idris's voice crackled through Kaia's communicator. "What's your status?" "That ship's closing in fast," Kaia replied quickly. "We've neutralized the droids and found their plan. They're trying to seize control of the station. I can disable the ship, but it'll detonate. We'll need immediate evac." Idris hesitated for only a moment. "Understood. I'll send a retrieval shuttle, but you've got less than 5 minutes." Kaia glanced at Mateo and the 2 security officers. "Get to the airlock and prep for evac. I'll handle the engines." "No way," Mateo said firmly. "You're not doing this alone." Kaia shook her head. "You're injured, and I need you to make sure the others get out safely. I'll meet you at the airlock once I'm done." Mateo hesitated, then reluctantly nodded. "You'd better make it back." Kaia smiled faintly. "Count on it." As Mateo and the others left, Kaia turned her attention to the engine controls. The failsafe was deeply embedded in the system, requiring her to bypass multiple layers of security. The ship trembled as its engines fired, drawing ever closer to Haven 1. Kaia's wrist communicator buzzed. A new message appeared on the interface. Override detected. Initiating self-destruct sequence. Countdown. 180 seconds. Great, Kaia muttered. No pressure. The ship's alarms blared, and the lights turned crimson. Kaia worked feverishly, rerouting power and severing connections to the engines. The countdown ticked away. 120 seconds. 90 seconds. At last, the engines powered down. The ship began to drift, its trajectory no longer aligned with Haven 1. Kaia let out a breath of relief, but her reprieve was short-lived. Self-destruct countdown. 60 seconds. Kaia bolted toward the airlock, her heart pounding in her ears. She met Mateo and the others just as the retrieval shuttle arrived, its docking clamps locking into place. Go, go, go! Mateo shouted, helping Kaia onto the shuttle as the ship's structure groaned ominously. The shuttle detached and sped away, the intruder vessel growing smaller in the viewport. Moments later, a blinding explosion lit up the void, scattering debris in every direction. Kaia slumped into her seat, her chest heaving. Mateo grinned at her, despite the pain etched on his face. I knew you'd make it, he said. Kaia managed a small smile. Let's hope that's the last of Solex's surprises. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Chapter 11. The Aftermath. Back on Haven 1, the mood was tense. Kaia and Mateo stood in the central command room alongside Commander Idris, a holographic report of the incident displayed before them. The explosion of the rogue vessel had left a debris field drifting perilously close to the station's orbit, forcing emergency teams to work around the clock to secure critical systems. Idris crossed her arms. Solex denies any involvement, of course. They're calling it a rogue faction and claiming no knowledge of the operation. Kaia frowned. Typical. They'll never admit to something this blatant unless we shove irrefutable evidence in their faces. Mateo, his arm in a sling, leaned against the console. We have the data from their ship. Operation Eclipse was logged in their systems. Isn't that enough proof? Idris sighed. Solex's lawyers will bury it in bureaucracy. And, even if we prove it, we'll only escalate tensions. The Earth Council won't risk a full-scale conflict in orbit, not while they're so dependent on Solex for resources. Kaia's frustration boiled over. So what? We just let them get away with trying to hijack the station? People could have died. Idris's gaze softened. I don't like it either, Kaia. But right now, our priority is stabilizing the station and ensuring this doesn't happen again. Kaia turned back to the hologram, her mind racing. Haven 1 had barely survived this attack, and it was clear Solex wouldn't stop until they had complete control of orbital operations. What about the Saboteur? Kaia asked. They're still out there. If they're working for Solex, they'll try again. Idris nodded grimly. We're tightening security protocols and running background checks on every crew member. But with 30,000 people on board, finding one infiltrator won't be easy. Kaia exchanged a glance with Mateo. The battle might have been won, but the war was far from over. Chapter 12. A Call to Action. In the days that followed, Kaia poured herself into reinforcing the station's systems. She worked with the engineering team to install new encryption layers, upgrade physical access points, and develop contingency plans for future attacks. But despite her efforts, she couldn't shake the feeling that Haven 1 was still vulnerable. One evening, as she stood in the station's observation dome, staring out at Earth's glowing surface below, Mateo joined her. You've been burning the midnight oil, he said, leaning against the railing. Kaia sighed. There's too much to do. Every time I think we've closed one loophole, I find two more. Mateo smirked. That's space life for you. Always a million things to fix. Kaia shook her head. It's not just about fixing things. It's about fighting for what this station represents. Haven One is supposed to be humanity's chance to start over, a place where collaboration matters more than politics or profit. Matteo nodded, his expression turning serious. You're right. And people like Solek see that as a threat. They want to own the future, no matter the cost. Kaia's gaze hardened. Then we can't let them. If Haven, one is going to survive, we need more than just defenses. We need to inspire people on Earth and in orbit to stand up against anyone who tries to take that future away. Matteo smiled. You sound like one of those old-school revolutionaries. All you need is a flag and a rallying cry. Kaia chuckled, but the determination in her eyes didn't waver. Maybe that's what we need. A movement. A reason for everyone on this station to fight for something bigger than themselves. Matteo raised an eyebrow. And let me guess, you're going to lead it? Kaia shrugged. Why not? Someone has to. And if it means keeping Haven, one safe, then yeah, I'm in. As the two of them gazed out into the endless expanse of stars, Kaia felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fight for Haven, one wasn't over, but now she had a vision for what came next, a united effort to protect humanity's second home and ensure that the stars belong to everyone, not just the powerful few. The journey ahead would be long and dangerous, but for the first time, Kaia felt ready. Chapter 13. Building the Resistance. Kaia's plan to create a movement began quietly. She knew that Haven One's strength lay not only in its technology, but in its people. The diverse community of engineers, scientists, farmers, and artists who called the station home had a shared stake in its survival, and they needed to see themselves as part of something greater. She started by reaching out to those she trusted most, Matteo, Commander Idris, and a handful of others who had proven their loyalty during the recent crisis. They met in small, discreet gatherings in unused maintenance hubs and quiet corners of the station. This isn't just about Solex, Kaia said during one of the first meetings. It's about taking control of our future. If we let corporations or politicians dictate what happens up here, everything we've built will be at risk. Matteo nodded. We can't just react to threats anymore. We need to be proactive, organize, share information, and prepare for whatever comes next. Idris leaned forward, her stern expression softening slightly. I've seen what unity can accomplish. If we bring the right people together, we can create something powerful enough to stand up to anyone who tries to undermine us. Word spread carefully through whispers and encrypted messages. Before long, Kaia's movement began to grow. People from every sector of Haven, one joined, bringing their unique skills to the cause. Hydroponic farmers offered to hide supplies. Programmers developed advanced security systems. Artists created symbols and slogans that inspired hope. Kaia stood in awe of what they were building. This is what Haven, one is supposed to be, she said to Matteo one evening. A place where people work together to create something better. But with growth came risks. Solex still had sympathizers on the station, and Kaia knew it was only a matter of time before her movement drew unwanted attention. Chapter 14. The Saboteur Revealed. As the movement gained momentum, so did the search for the elusive saboteur. Security teams worked tirelessly to analyze every lead, but progress was slow. Kaia's frustration mounted. If they couldn't identify the saboteur, they'd always be a step behind. One night, as Kaia was reviewing surveillance footage in her quarters, she noticed something odd. The maintenance logs for Reactor Module B, the site of the original sabotage, had been tampered with. The timestamps didn't match the station's internal clock. Someone altered these logs after the fact, she muttered. But why? She cross-referenced the data with access records and found a name that sent a chill down her spine. Dr. Elena Voss, a respected biochemist and longtime resident of Haven, 1. Kaia couldn't believe it. Voss was a pillar of the station's scientific community, known for her work in sustainable oxygen production. She had no obvious ties to Solex or any motive for sabotage. Still, the evidence was clear. Kaia brought the findings to Matteo, who frowned as he studied the logs. If it's Voss, she's been playing a long game, he said. But why would someone like her risk everything to help Solex? Kaia shook her head. I don't know. But we need to confront her quietly. If she's working for Solex, we can't let her tip them off that we're onto her. The next day, Kaia and Matteo found Voss in the station's central lab, surrounded by rows of glowing hydroponic tanks. Dr. Voss, Kaia said, her tone carefully neutral. We need to talk. Voss looked up, her expression calm but guarded. Of course. What's this about? Kaia took a deep breath. We know you've been accessing restricted systems. Your logs point to Reactor Module B during the sabotage, and we found your ID in the altered maintenance records. For a moment, Voss's face remained unreadable. Then she sighed, her shoulders slumping. You're smarter than I gave you credit for, she said quietly. Matteo's hand drifted toward the stun device on his belt. So it's true. You're working for Solex. Voss shook her head. It's not what you think. I'm not working for Solex. I'm trying to stop them. Kaia frowned. What are you talking about? Voss gestured for them to sit, her voice low and urgent. Solex approached me years ago. They offered me funding for my research in exchange for certain favors. At first, it seemed harmless. But when I realized what they were planning, I knew I had to act. By sabotaging the station? Kaia demanded, her frustration boiling over. By creating a trail, Voss said calmly. I needed to draw attention to their plans without exposing myself. If Solex knew I'd turned against them, they'd silence me permanently. Kaia exchanged a wary glance with Matteo. And we're supposed to trust you now? Voss met her gaze, her expression resolute. I know you have no reason to trust me. But if you want to stop Solex, you'll need my help. I have access to their network, information that could bring their entire operation to its knees. Kaia hesitated. Voss's story was compelling, but the stakes were too high to take her at her word. Still, if she was telling the truth, her knowledge could be the key to defeating Solex once and for all. Fine, Kaia said at last. But if you double-cross us, you'll wish Solex got to you first. Voss nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. Fair enough. Let's bring them down, shall we? Chapter 15. Into the lion's den. Dr. Voss didn't waste time proving her worth. In her quarters, she revealed a hidden data drive containing encrypted files stolen from Solex's network. As Kaia and Matteo scanned the contents, they found blueprints, communication logs, and detailed plans for future operations. Operation Eclipse was just the beginning, Voss explained. Solex wants complete dominance over orbital infrastructure. They've already started installing covert surveillance on Arcadia and have sleeper agents on at least 3 other stations. They don't just want Haven. They want space itself. Kaia felt a chill run down her spine. And Earth's governments are just letting this happen? Voss shook her head. They don't know. Solex uses proxies and shell corporations to hide their involvement. By the time anyone figures it out, it'll be too late. Matteo leaned back, his expression grim. So how do we stop them? It's not like we can march into Solex HQ with this and expect them to fold. Voss hesitated, then brought up a file labeled Project Aegis. This is their Achilles heel, she said. Aegis is an experimental AI they've been developing to coordinate their operations. It's stored on Arcadia in a secured data vault. If we can infiltrate Arcadia and disable the AI, we'll cripple their ability to execute these plans. Kaia frowned. Infiltrate Arcadia? That's a corporate fortress. How are we supposed to pull that off? Voss gave a small, enigmatic smile. With the right tools and the right people, it's not impossible. I have access codes that can get us through their initial defenses. After that, it's up to us. Kaia exchanged a look with Matteo. The plan was risky, borderline suicidal, but it was their best shot at stopping Solex before they gained total control. We're in, Kaia said firmly. When do we leave? Chapter 16. The infiltration begins. The journey to Arcadia was tense and silent. Kaia, Matteo, and Voss traveled aboard a disguised cargo vessel, using forged credentials to pass through Solex's outer checkpoints. The closer they got to the station, the more palpable the tension became. Arcadia was a stark contrast to Haven 1. Its exterior was sleek and intimidating, its dark metal hull bristling with antennas and defense turrets. Unlike Haven 1, which was a collaborative project celebrating diversity, Arcadia was a monument to Solex's authoritarian ethos, efficiency over humanity, profit over community. As the cargo ship docked, Kaia adjusted her disguise, a maintenance uniform provided by Voss. Matteo and Voss were similarly clad, blending in as part of a routine supply delivery. "Stick to the plan," Voss murmured as they disembarked. "We have a small window to access the vault before their system flags us. No detours, no improvising." Kaia nodded, though her pulse quickened with anticipation. "Let's do this." The group moved quickly through Arcadia's labyrinthine corridors, guided by Voss's knowledge of the station's layout. Every step felt like walking on a razor's edge. Armed guards patrolled the halls, and security drones hovered overhead, their scanners sweeping for intruders. At last, they reached the data vault, a heavily reinforced chamber guarded by a biometric lock. Voss stepped forward and inserted a forged keycard into the terminal. The device scanned her retina, then emitted a soft beep as the door slid open. "We're in," she whispered. Inside, the vault was a high-tech marvel. Rows of crystalline data servers glowed faintly, their contents pulsating like veins of liquid light. At the center of the room sat the core housing for Aegis, the AI that controlled Solex's operations. Kaia approached the core, her hands shaking slightly. "This is it. Once we take this offline, Solex will lose their coordination. It won't stop them completely, but it'll give us time to expose their plans." Voss handed Kaia a decryption module. "Plug this into the core. It'll bypass the AI's firewalls and initiate a cascade failure. Once it starts, there's no going back." Kaia hesitated for only a moment before inserting the module. The core's lights flickered, and the servers began to hum louder, signaling the decryption process had begun. But before they could celebrate, an alarm blared through the vault. A mechanical voice echoed over the intercom, "Unauthorized access detected. Security lockdown initiated." Kaia spun around as heavy blast doors began to close, trapping them inside. From the hallway outside, the sound of approaching boots and whirring drones grew louder. "They know we're here," Matteo shouted, pulling out a compact EMP device. Voss's face was pale but determined. "We have to hold them off until the decryption finishes. If we fail now, it's all over." Kaia nodded, her heart pounding. The clock was ticking, and the fight for humanity's future had just begun. Chapter 17, Holding the Line. The blast doors slammed shut, sealing Kaia, Matteo, and Voss inside the vault. The hum of the Aegis core intensified as the decryption module worked to dismantle its firewalls. A countdown appeared on Kaia's wrist communicator. 10 minutes remaining. "They're coming," Matteo said, his voice tight as he positioned himself near the entrance. His EMP device was ready, but it would only buy them a few moments against the swarm of security forces likely headed their way. Kaia quickly assessed their surroundings. "We can use the server racks for cover," she said. "But if they breach the door before the decryption finishes, we're toast." Voss knelt beside a terminal, furiously typing. "I'm trying to divert their internal comms. If I can scramble their security network, we might slow them down." The sound of heavy impacts reverberated through the vault as the guards outside began using breaching charges. Kaia grabbed a shock baton from her belt, her mind racing. "Matteo, focus on the drones. I'll handle anything that gets too close. Voss, just keep that decryption running." Matteo smirked. "You mean I get the fun job?" Before Kaia could reply, the first breach occurred. A section of the blast door melted under a high-energy plasma cutter, and a swarm of drones buzzed through the opening. Matteo lobbed his EMP device into the air, sending out a pulse that short-circuited half the machines, but the others adapted quickly, spreading out to avoid the next attack. One drone fired a bright blue energy beam, narrowly missing Kaia as she dove behind a server rack. "These things are way too advanced," she shouted. "Welcome to Solex's budget," Matteo grunted, firing his stun rifle at another drone. The breach widened, and armored guards began pouring into the vault. Kaia sprang into action, her shock baton crackling as she struck the first guard who approached. The impact sent him sprawling, his armor sparking as the baton's charge overwhelmed his systems. "I hope that decryption is worth it, Voss," Kaia called, dodging another attack. Voss didn't look up. 8 minutes. Just hold them off. Chapter 18. Betrayal in the Vault. The fight grew more desperate as Solex forces pushed further into the vault. Kaia and Matteo fought with everything they had, using the narrow corridors between server racks to create bottlenecks. But the guards were relentless, their weapons forcing Kaia and Matteo to retreat closer to the core. As Kaia took down another guard with a well-placed stun bolt, she noticed something strange. Voss had stopped typing. She was standing by the terminal, her face obscured by the glow of the core. "Voss!" Kaia shouted. "What are you doing?" "Keep working." Voss turned slowly, her expression unreadable. In her hand was a small device, a failsafe detonator connected to the decryption module. "I can't let you destroy Aegis," Voss said, her voice calm but resolute. Kaia froze. "What are you talking about? You said this was the only way to stop Solex." Voss shook her head. "I told you what you needed to hear. Aegis isn't just an AI, it's the key to humanity's survival in space. Solex doesn't understand its full potential, but I do. If we destroy it, we lose everything." Matteo stared at her in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me. After everything we've been through, you're switching sides now." "This was never about sides," Voss replied. "This is about the future. With Aegis under my control, we can end Solex's monopoly. I can use it to protect Haven. To protect all of us." Kaia's grip tightened on her baton. "You're insane. Aegis is a weapon, and no one should have that kind of power, not Solex and not you." The countdown on the decryption module read 3 minutes. Voss raised the detonator. "I won't let you do this, Kaia. Walk away now, and I'll make sure you and Matteo get out alive." Kaia stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You don't get to decide humanity's future, Voss. None of us do. That's why we're here, to stop anyone from holding that kind of control." Voss's gaze wavered for a moment, but her grip on the detonator didn't falter. "You're making a mistake," she said. "No," Kaia replied, charging forward. "You are." The two women collided, the detonator slipping from Voss's hand as Kaia tackled her to the ground. Matteo scrambled to grab the device, but a guard fired, forcing him to dive for cover. Kaia wrestled with Voss, their struggle carrying them dangerously close to the core. The decryption module emitted a high-pitched whine, signaling the final phase of the cascade failure. "Kaia!" Matteo shouted. "We're out of time." With one final surge of effort, Kaia pinned Voss and delivered a disabling shock from her baton. Voss slumped to the ground, unconscious. Kaia staggered to her feet, grabbing the detonator and tossing it aside. The countdown reached 0, and the core's lights dimmed as the decryption completed. Aegis was offline. Kaia turned to Matteo, her breath ragged. "Let's get out of here." The two of them dragged Voss's unconscious body toward the exit, dodging incoming fire as the Solex forces realized what had happened. Their mission was complete, but the fight for the future was far from over.